Okay. Hey there. Um, Remember me? My name is Brett Valentini. I'm the host of a podcast called, um, it's the Sox Populi Podcast. This somehow is number 182 in our series in our increasing pain and misery series of podcasting about the Chicago White Sox baseball club. I haven't seen any of you or talked to any of you in a long time because not to make you, any of you out there listening or watching or reading or whatever it is you're doing to follow this, question your purpose here. But I mean, really, if you missed me or us or the team too much, I mean, seriously, what's wrong with you? Because you should be enjoying a break. I'm sorry that you can't luxuriate in a Chicago Bears season or a Chicago Bulls season or a Chicago Blackhawks season. And let's face it, what other sports of import are there? But you should be trying to distance yourself from a 121 loss team as much as possible. Anyhow, in case you've forgotten the sound of my melodious voice, my name is Brett Valentini, hosting this podcast along with my best pal in the entire world. It's Melissa Sage-Bollenbach. She also predicted the 2024 season back in March, which is ostensibly what we're going to discuss during much of this podcast. I believe Super Joseph Resis is going to be dialing in from parts elsewhere. I don't know, could be West Coast, could be the Chicagoland area for the holidays, could be parts, maybe could be calling in from the Caribbean. We'll see. If he's wearing something tropical, we'll know something is afoot. He's moved again or something. We plan on hearing from him here 10, 15 minutes or so. But Melissa, thank you for having the courage to show up for this podcast and address some predictions made well, made poorly, and just to talk about the White Sox, because frankly, I mean, we're now officially in the holiday season, and who really wants to ruin a holiday by talking about the White Sox?
True that.
Yeah. Astute listeners, viewers, readers may note that in the past we've had like a whole Soxivus celebration. And, there are a number of reasons why this podcast usually was part of the Soxivus celebration, where we review our goods and bads and our naughties and nices of the previous season. And, there's a number of reasons why we're not doing that. I mean, namely, again, what I keep leading with, if I haven't drilled into your heads, if I haven't made you shut this podcast off already, I mean, it's hard to get excited about this team. It's hard to even mock celebrate, which is sort of what Soxivus is, I think. Not to speak for Father Soxivus himself, Tommy Barbie, but I think it is sort of like tongue-in-cheeky, wink, wink. But I mean, you can't winking with both eyes is blinking and shutting them. So right now, if we were to really wink in a Soxivus, yes, we'd be shutting our eyes. And if we did that for long enough, you'd just think we died podcasting the White Sox. And I can't think of a sadder fate, Melissa. So no Soxivus this year. Maybe it'll come back next year. Maybe we'll do it in January instead if Tommy arises. But for now, this is, I guess, the breadth of the Soxivus celebration. So
it's in hibernation this year. The Soxivus crawled into the cave, went into hibernation.
Yeah. No T-shirts. No gear. No series of best games, worst games, whatever we did in past years. No, it's just reviewing our predictions. This year we had first-time winners and actually first-time last place contestant. The winners this year coming out of nowhere, sort of like I did last year, because I started out this in 2021 performing pretty poorly, but you're the Hamster, on the strength of her undying faith in her hometown Milwaukee Brewers, helped really push her into first place, along with, I'm just going to, I guess I'm going to call him our sort of like in and out writer. He's written a couple pieces for us. So somehow in that time also managed to throw down some predictions among, I don't know, about 14 others. Enrique Silva, he ended up tying. It was our first tie ever. I guess there should have been a tiebreaker, but I guess there isn't. I think they're just dead tied. So congratulations to both of them. It's been a long haul for Hamster because, again, she started out pretty poorly like I did back in 2021, I think, when we first did this. And trailing for the first time. And now the first of our predictors to ever win once and finish last. Crystal O'Keefe won the very first year we did this. And this year, I mean, let's face it, what better year to finish last than a season like this for the White Sox? So it's appropriate. Her spirit was just clearly down. Maybe when we look back, we'll see she picked them for 95 wins or something, but something about her predictions this time around had her finishing in last place. Melissa ended up finishing somewhere mid-pack or so. I myself, the defending champion, fifth, not so great. Lee Allen came back. He picked the first year, and then I don't know, conscientious objector to picking the season for a couple of years. He came back this year strong, finished third. Luke Smales, got to call him out. Our buddy Luke, our analyst Luke, always finishes very well. 14th out of 18 this year. Luke, step it up, my man. Dante.
Sometimes the numbers you just can't. They're just unpredictable.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No. Yeah. He just probably transposed a couple digits, and that really would probably explain it. Dante Jones, who unfortunately won't be able to be with us because, I don't know, work, as he said, is expecting to work. Go figure. Work is so overrated. Sixth, finished sixth this year, right behind me. Sorry, Dante. Maybe next year. Melissa, seventh in the field of 18. So right in the middle of the pack there.
We sandwiched Dante then. We did the Dante sandwich.
That's true. That's true. So as we wait, Joe, let's chat a little bit. I mean, first, let's, as I alluded, I'm going to salute Hamster on 2 calls because she actually picked all 3 National League division winners, including being the only person of all of us to pick both the Brewers to win the division and the Phillies to win the division. And that's, so what? But all the rest of us picked the Braves. To NL East, and she was the only one who said, you know what, it's Phillies. And that pick looked good sort of early in the season. I mean, that wasn't like a last minute backing into it. So this is a total cap tip there. Clearly she let the rest of the pack catch up with her because she with a lead like that, she should have not relinquished. And she did. Enrique caught her at least. Only 3 Guardians picks, including Crystal, who again did not use that to her advantage. A lot of Astros, only Brewers pick, and then pretty much everybody picked the Dodgers. And see here, we're already understanding why Crystal had a hot and cold picking year because she had the Diamondbacks winning the NL Wests, which really they came close to at least make the playoffs. They made a late run there, but didn't quite get there. Melissa, offhand, is there something you can think of you did well or poorly without me trying to look it up and call you out on it? Is there something you feel particularly good or bad about? You got 0 division winners but the Dodgers, which actually technically is a gimme.
Everybody, I was gonna say at least I got the Dodgers right. But I was trying to go with some underdogs when I was picking the divisions because I was like, well, the Cardinals, they're about due for a surge, so I was like, I'm gonna pick them as some underdogs. And I mean, I didn't think the Yankees were going to be quite as good as they ended up being. I still thought the Orioles were going to kind of dominate that division, but it's totally missed that target. I think I don't know if we're moving this far ahead, but in picking the best players on the White Sox and stuff, and who the pitcher MVP and who the pitcher rookie was, I was all in on Jordan Leisure, and boy, he kind of stunk it up. I mean, he got hurt, but that was I totally missed that.
Well, it was looking good for a little bit. He started out pretty good before
he did.
The league caught up with him or whatever. Yeah. You were all in. I gotta say, when we learn Melissa's pitcher MVP pick, it's good to go the other direction because, of course, your prior pick was Kopech the year before. That didn't work out for you either. Although, again, plausible.
Look, I mean, the Dodgers, he could be their, well, I mean, they just have way too many MVP pitchers on their team, but I mean, he certainly performed for the Dodgers.
Yeah,
but.
yeah. So you're just a year off, which is not going to get you winning the title next year if you continue to be a year off. Let's yeah, we can jump around. Who cares? We can jump around. I mean, we got no agenda here. Plus, yeah, after the break, we're probably going to like talk about other stuff. I don't want to, but I guess we'll talk about like the White Sox, and they got a manager. You know, we haven't done a podcast like seems like for about 5-6 years. So I mean, there are some things to actually address. I do want to point this out. This is interesting. You know, as much as it seems like a foregone conclusion now that the White Sox are going to be so horrible and, you know, 121 losses, you thought, boy, you know, who wouldn't have predicted that, right? Well, actually, only 4 of the, again, I'm just guessing here, 15 of us or so, 18 of us, I don't know what it is, picked the White Sox as the worse than the AL. Most people everybody picked the A's except me, Ryan, Adrian Serrano, and Enrique Silva. Everyone else had the A's, which turned out to really not be terribly close, right? So, I mean, it's easy to say now, wow, boy, we all saw this coming. I mean, you know, we can extend that discussion to now jump down as long as you've already broken the tape on the best rookie and best pitcher. Just talk about picking this season. I mean, I was a little bit surprised because I felt uncomfortable saying 108 record-breaking losses for the White Sox, and of course that ends up being 13 games short. But you know, Ryan came, he just blew. He was drafting behind me, and then they just blew past me with the 111 pick. But I don't think too many other people were close. Hamster at 106.
Yeah.
Enrique at 105, Lee at 104. So now we're starting to see why the pecking order ended up this way, because these are most of the leaders. Only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So just more than half, including you, Melissa, at 102, had the White Sox technically with a worse season than 2023, which, you know, is hilarious in retrospect. But let's see, calling out Ashley Sanders and then also Adrian Serrano for saying, respectively, the White Sox would lose the division. They would trail in the division by only 15 games in Ashley's mind and 17 in Adrian's mind. The funny thing is, Ashley still had the Sox picked for 99 losses. So that means, you know, she was anticipating a really, really bad division. Joining us from, we're not quite certain, I guess it isn't the Caribbean. He's not looking tropical. So I guess it is perhaps that West Coast or maybe the Chicagoland area. It is Super Joseph Resis. Welcome, Joseph. We were just talking a bit about, we're just jumping around on the predictions grid. So congratulations first off for your, what is it, 4th place? How'd you finish? You finished well, and you finish well every year.
Oh,
so
thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, I was surprised I did as well as I did, for sure. Like, I knew I had the Dodgers predicted correctly, but I was not as confident that I would have, you know, been that close to the front with some of my individual player predictions. But yeah, happy we got there.
4th. Joe Resis' first year of predictions, 4th. The next year, 3rd. 2023 clearly just crushed by how bad the team was. 12th, had a bad year. 12th, although it's still about mid. So, you know, Melissa, some compatriot there. And then this year, 4th. So Joe is consistently, we've had most people, myself included, up and down with this. Joe's pretty steady. Even Luke Smales this year bottoms out. So you can't even say, well, Luke's always reliable, like top 5. So, you know, you put some distance between you and Luke. So, you know, Joe, you've reclaimed your, I mean, there's no Sox math anymore. So technically you've reclaimed your Sox math championship.
Right.
So well done this year. Yeah, we're just going through right now, I guess, sort of the grid and talking about favorite picks, worst picks, and so forth. Anything about what you anticipated about this season, either astutely or not, in looking back on your 2024? I mean, the Dodgers, yeah, we could all break our arms, pat ourselves on the back about that. But if you didn't pick the Dodgers, you know, what's wrong with you? So aside from riding the Dodgers all the way, is there something else that stood out to you about, you know, good or bad?
Yeah, this is a sort of I think everyone is on the same page on this one. We all knew that the White Sox would be bad, but even still, none of us were that close to predicting their record correctly.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, who really would expect 41 wins? Even though they were obviously expected to be, among the worst teams by pretty much everyone. I guess with the National League Rookie of the Year, I'm like, in retrospect, Paul Skeens just seemed like such a good pick, but no one picked him.
Yeah, it's true.
Yes, for a while, I had Yamamoto, who was doing well, then he got hurt.
Right.
So that didn't work out overly well, but Skeens is going to be good for a while, I think.
Yeah, maybe we just figured that people would, hold him down, game some time or something where it's, I mean, maybe are we still in that era? I don't know. Maybe we're not. I mean, I would guess that would be part of the reason why nobody would anticipate it. Clearly, he's a great player. And I don't think anybody would have doubted that going into the season. Obviously, it was just that we didn't think he'd be up for long enough to.
Yeah,
do
that was
much.
me. I wasn't sure exactly when he would be up and how long he would be up for, so that conscience wasn't on my radar yet, I guess.
Yeah. And kudos to you, Joe, along with our co-winner, Hamster, of being the only two people to peg what seems like a no-brainer, Shohei Ohtani, as MVP. I mean, my thinking was the guy's injured, and that's going to have to affect him. I'm sure I anticipated an incredible season, but just maybe there had to be somebody who'd be able to like sneak ahead of him, and who thought 50-50 or what. I mean, this is just insane. So it is actually sort of funny that only two people, including you, Joe, rode Shohei, despite the injury, not being a two-way player, whatever. As if he clearly, we know now he doesn't need to be a two-way player to be the MVP. So I'm guessing the vast majority, if not like 100% of folks next year, will tab Shohei as the NL MVP. But well done there. That's a standout pick. I mean, again, like picking the White Sox to be bad, it doesn't seem like, or the Dodgers to be good, doesn't seem like it should be any great shakes. But two people out of 14, 15 did it. So well done.
Yeah, thank you. I was also not overly confident in that when I was making that pick due to the lack of pitching, but I thought his hitting actually could make up for it, even though he doesn't have that unique tool that he usually has.
Yeah.
And I don't blame us for not having a lot of people who picked him for that.
And the base stealing. I mean, okay, we know he can do it. It's just, come on, that at will. I mean, there's something to be said for piling up stolen bases, but then also stolen base efficiency. I mean, that's the golden Tim Raines thing, and some of these elite base stealers is great to steal a ton and be aggressive and have that speed, but it's another thing to do it efficiently, so you're not hurting the team with these controversial stolen bases. There's no reason many more guys shouldn't be doing what Shohei's doing, given the adjustments to the rules. It's still sort of shocking, even though I know SBs are up, that, okay, 50-50 is rare air, but the idea that there aren't many 50-plus base stealers, even now, that's something, I mean, certainly the novelty of the 50-50 aside, just getting to that point and being this guy who's big, it has the speed, but is big. It's risky. It's easy to get injured. You jam a finger, you jam a shoulder. I mean, it happened.
Well, you saw what he did.
Yeah.
I mean, dislocating the shoulder. I mean, to me, I'm like, this guy is too valuable. Just don't let him steal any more bases. Like, I know you can't tell like elite players like not to do something, but like if I was the Dodgers, I think I just might. I've been like, okay, you got your 50-50 season, but now he's coming back to pitch. So he's be pitching, running, hitting, like, I don't know. Makes me I don't want to see his career shortened because he's out there trying to steal bases.
Okay, Melissa is red lighting Shohei. Joe, where do you stand on this?
I would agree. It was a very, very exciting season. I mean, he was a better base stealer this year than Billy Hamilton ever was, incredibly. But I would agree that the World Series was not the same with him, like sort of playing at not full
with one arm.
Yeah. I think that's at least an easier argument to defend.
All right. Well, as last year's champion, I will pull rank and say green light Shohei. I get your arguments, but play the game. I get it. It's probably as foolish, and everyone listening will say, man, that guy's a bigger idiot than I already thought he was. But fine, play the game. It could the fireball could be hurtling to earth right now. So just play the game and, let the bases fall where they will. Joe Resis was a bit complimentary, but gonna have to perhaps call you out a little here, given the fact that the majority of us did think the White Sox would lose at least 100 games. Joe, you saw the White Sox improving and losing only 98, which is sort of a hilarious nit to pick here, but can you somehow travel back now? What would it be? At this point, it's approximately 9 months to a time in March-ish when you felt the White Sox were just a 98 loss team.
Yeah, I felt like 2023 it just seemed like so much went wrong down the stretch. They lost a lot of games that it felt like it felt like the worst case scenario to me at the time, at least. Like, I know right now that seems really stupid, but even with them going ice cold down the stretch in 2023, like that wasn't, we learned very well it was not the worst case scenario. I was like, some of these games are simply going to go their way next year. I kind of thought that, they'd have a little bit more of a boost to the starting rotation that they actually would have had. Like, I had somewhat high hopes for Soroka, in the rotation. That, of course, didn't pan out. And obviously the offense just across the board, just like not even Luis Robert Jr. was a good player for them this year. Like, which is almost hard to have that happen where you have just no above average players on your among all of your position players. Like, you could accidentally stumble into a good position, having a good fielder or two on your roster, even though on paper the projections would state that all of these guys are bad. So that was largely where my head was, but that's 98 losses. That seemed like in retrospect, absolutely very high in the sky.
Deliciously naive, Joe. Now, some of you listening, viewing, reading, following, may not be aware. Joe Resis, he's our Sox Math champion, and as a Sox Math champion, you're going to appreciate this, Joe. I don't think we've had a chance to talk about this yet because I did so much ugly research all season long, so I just feel I should share some of it. I don't know if we've talked about this yet. You alluded to it, that it's really hard, like just by luck, you fall out of bed and don't have an offense as bad. Well, as it turns out, I don't really know how they ended up falling for sure, but I can tell you with great confidence, there's been only one clearly worse offense, at least in WAR terms, ever. 77 Braves, I think, were -10 WAR. The Sox finished, I think they got under -7 there. When I started looking it up saying, wait, this seems really creepy and ugly, I got to figure out how many teams out there have actually done worse. I think they're at -7 at the time. I think they ended up getting under that, but I mean, even if they finished, 6-5, it couldn't be more than a dozen or so teams quite that bad. We're talking about historic ineptitude on the offensive side. And frankly, the team was terrible in all aspects, truly, especially once Crochet started having to be slowed down. Fetty was traded back off into oblivion, might as well have been overseas because he had no impact with his new team. once those two guys were gone, trouble, 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 trouble. And you know what? That's a seg into, I guess, our second half. So I won't jump quite there yet. Is there anything else we want to address about these prediction results? Because this is what the title of the podcast is. We can talk as long as we want about our silly 2024 predictions and Joe's great performance and my pretty good performance and Melissa's average performance. All better, all average or better. So, clearly we are among the Sox Populi and South Side Sox experts out there. And please, nobody laugh. But, we nailed Martin Maldonado as the worst player fairly well. I picked Max. Was he Stassi? I'd never even bothered to learn how to pronounce his name. He never played for the team. It was a good pick. Don't tell me it wasn't a good pick. He just didn't even act. He wasn't good enough to be the worst player on the team.
Yeah.
I did find it interesting that, of course, because it did come out of nowhere, none of us had Chris Sale down as the NL Cy Young. That one just snuck up on everybody. So,
yeah, we're used to him somehow being overlooked because it had not happened for him before, despite how good he had been, even there for a year or two, even with Boston. So, that really did come out of nowhere. Well, let's put it, if you win the comeback player of the year and a major award, you've had a pretty good year, and a pretty unexpected year. That's for sure. I don't know what else we have to call out. We already gave Hamster some laurels, and Joe, deserved or not, I'm not sure. It's sort of up in the air because he was so sunny about the Sox, but then he got Shohei and all that. Melissa, did you actually talk about you admitted something you hated? Was there any pick you actually made that was good that went against the grain, or is that why you're in the middle of the pack because you really didn't do
No, because my player MVP was Eloy.
Yeah.
At least most other people pick Luis. It's not like he was any better, but Hamster picked Yoan Moncada. I can't believe that didn't tank her stats.
Yeah, well, that's how bad the offense was. A guy who played 10 games turned out to be the second best, technically by my convoluted records, the second best offensive player to Luis Robert. So, go figure. The pickings were slim, so we only picked 3 different players. That tells you how bad we knew it was going in.
And who would we even say was the best rookie on the Sox? Can we even name one? I don't.
Yeah,
I just realized that we all got
it's
0
true.
points.
0.
Yeah,
that's true.
Nastrini
seemed solid. He sort of played his way into the rotation. Then he got the flu or whatever. Played his way into the rotation out of camp, so that seemed solid. Leisure seemed good in terms of a little bit of sort of a wild card pick because maybe the class wasn't very good. So that was might as well roll the dice on something like that. I picked Dominic Fletcher because I thought he still qualified and. He had the promise that should have been a good pick. Not really.
Maybe Jonathan Cannon.
Oh yeah.
He was kind of decent.
There, Joe.
Yeah. He also broke the 21 game losing streak. That was good.
He probably would have earned some points. It's sort of miraculous that we have half a dozen names here and none of them even qualified for points. So that tells you how well. Come on, this team was. If this prediction season isn't an outlier, it's remarkable any of us got any points at all. Although I guess we probably racked up points like picking the Dodgers and stuff and really didn't have much to do with the White Sox. Because when I was the second most dour picker of the White Sox record, and yet I was still off by 13 losses, this is unprecedented creepiness and horribleness. Maybe on that note, we should take a break and then talk about the stuff we haven't talked about while we've been off for the last 5-6 years, and that is a new manager and a boring hot stove, and I don't know what we do as Sox fans aside from become un-Sox fans or something. Let's take a break for a minute. I believe that our friends at the Fans First Sports Network will still try to insert a commercial and sell you something, even though you'd have to think sponsoring a White Sox podcast wouldn't exactly be your best allotment of advertising dollars. There may still be something for you to listen to for just maybe a minute or two. Don't worry, we'll be back. If you've stuck with us this long, and I mean, come on, Joe's with us now. If you stuck with us this long, come on, stick around for 15, 20 minutes longer. We'll have something to say. It might make you laugh, or I don't know, make you shed a tiny tear, make you contemplate the reality of your Sox fandom. Not to get too heavy. It's the holiday season. We'll try to keep it light, but we're talking about the White Sox. We can't really make it light, but we'll be back minute or two. Hang with us. Hey, White Sox fans. You might remember me as a host of a White Sox podcast. If you've forgotten White Sox podcasts exist, good for you. Bully for you. You should be forgetting coverage of the White Sox. Well, frankly, next year's television coverage, you may forget because, it's, I don't know, is it still hard to find there? I'm out of Chicagoland area. I don't really know, but I know there's been quite a big furor. Yeah, this is a podcast. We do it for Sox Populi and the Fans First Sports Network. We've done 182 of them. Technically more, but not all of them carried over to this. We did some with, I don't know, we did Spotify or SoundCloud. I don't even know what the names of the things were, but Joe Resis goes way back. He was probably on one of those that is now just lost to time. The early Sharing Sox podcasts, they're mysteriously gone. We started doing podcasts really for the first time consistently when the White Sox, believe it or not, were in the playoffs, losing to the Oakland A's. That was really some of our first podcasting, and those are just lost all time, especially because Sports Illustrated has changed hands 6, 7, 8 times, doesn't keep any. Hey, Joe and Melissa, I go looking for I used to hardly be able to find any Comcast articles that I wrote for the White Sox, all of these 12 or so years ago, but I could find a few. Now they're just all gone. The transience of the media, at least newspapers still technically do exist. They're on microfiche. You can get a physical copy. I guess they have websites that they actually maintain, maybe even when they go out of business, but Comcast, NBC, gone. Anyhow, I guess I'm setting the right tone for this second half of the podcast, because I guess we're going to have to reluctantly address what in the world's going on in the South Side of Chicago, what to look forward to in 2025. I say look forward to as if there is anything to look forward to in 2025. But how about this? I guess we can uptalk this one slightly, because while I'm not exactly convinced that our new manager is going to be any sort of special manager, he clearly was held in high regard around the league. He was wanted by teams before he even was ready to interview with teams a year previous. So your reactions to the White Sox actually signing on a top prospect as manager instead of some strange guy stashed in the bullpen as a, bullpen catcher or something for the Kansas City Royals. This is a different feel to actually get like a top candidate for whatever that really means to you. How you feel about having Will Venable as our manager?
I am a fan. It's something to look forward to. There is not much, like you said, but they are, it feels different to be on this end of it, where the White Sox end up with the candidate that was very much sought after, as opposed to just relying on a familiar face to get the job done. Venable. I mean, we don't have much information on him in terms of how he will do, of course, but on paper it seems to be like it was a well thought out move, and I'm interested in seeing how he does. It's been a little while since we've had a serious manager, it seems like. I mean, Rick Renteria was, I would say I wasn't a big fan of him during most of his tenure, but after seeing the past managers they've had. I've been very much longing for the days of
his stature has increased, no doubt about it.
Yes. But yeah, Venable seems great. And I'm interested in seeing how he does.
Well, I think Venable he's either going to end up looking like a genius or a fool, because I mean, I'm excited about it just because, like Joe said, I mean, for once we are actually getting someone who seems like they have a nice pedigree, a competent background, checks all the boxes that, we're interested in. So I don't really know why he came here, other than he said it was time and he liked Chicago. But I guess what's even more encouraging is, like, after Venable, and then the competent picks seem to keep coming with, the announcement of the what's his name? Walker McKinnon, the run prevention guy from the Brewers that they were very sad to lose. I mean, that, coming from the Brewers seem to know what they're doing. Ryan Fuller, the hitting, Brian Bannister of hitting.
Right.
So I guess I am encouraged that at least there seems like a plan, and it seems like they've stuck with the plan of hiring people with good, competent backgrounds.
Yeah. How does that make you feel, with, at least in the context of what they'll have to work with? Because I think, as we at least alluded to in discussing the predictions and how off we were, because we could not anticipate how historically awful this team would be, nothing's going to change. I think, Joe, you made reference to the fact that a lot of these games will break the White Sox way next year. And I guess the law of averages, we're flipping a coin and it came up tails every time last year, I suppose. I don't think we can exactly book that, which is why I don't think any of us are taking our predictions to Las Vegas. And if you do, don't do that. I don't have to run one of those 1-800 things. It's everywhere anyway, so you should know better. Don't do that. But the personnel isn't there. It's not going to be there. So I guess, because we know nothing's going to fall from the sky. I mean, the White Sox target for the offseason was some dude who, I guess, mashes righties, and I guess the numbers in a platoon look like they could be pretty good, but come on. So we're playing. We might as well be the Louisville Bats or the Chattanooga Lookouts at this point, because we're not playing in the major leagues in this regard. And maybe the time isn't right. Maybe people are saying, Brett, you're proving yourself an idiot by saying this again. Why in the world would you be bringing in talent to this team? Well, we have to watch it. I'd like talent on this team, but it's not there. And even though the starting pitching depth seems like it's there in a way that it hasn't been in some time, there's no elite, especially if Garrett's going, which something tells me Chris Getz got his feelings hurt and he's going. But okay, even he's there. That's 1-0. To say nothing is rough, because there's like maybe upwards of 8 pitchers who could actually contribute in a major league rotation. I'm just not sure if it's going to be in 2025. And then we haven't even discussed the offense. I'm talking about the starting rotation. Like, that's the issue on this team. This team is horrible. And this team is, on paper, unless we see big jumps from a lot of jumps at all from a lot of the young players, which is not implausible. But I'm not sure any of us will say, oh, it's a no-brainer. Brooks Baldwin is going to be borderline all-star this year, or Edgar Carroll is going to come up in July and kill it. And he might be the safest bet. So this team's going to be dog awful next year. So, I mean, it's nice that the masthead looks better, but are these experts going to have anything to work with, or are they going to find themselves much less expert when they see what it is they have to work with? Oh, that's a good essay question. All right, guys, get at it.
No, you're right. I mean, they're terrible. They don't have anything to work with. And especially from the offensive side. And, Brett and Joe, you guys, we cover the minors, and we kind of dug pretty deep this year because it was some of the only things to look forward to. And there, the cupboard is pretty bare. And so obviously it's not going to be what can these guys do with the current players that we have, more just the ones that are the youngsters that we do have that are developing. Yeah. How can they help them develop? How can they encourage their growth? And then a philosophy that has to bleed into the minors as well as clubhouse culture, that kind of stuff, because they're just not going to be better on the offensive side. They might get a few more wins because their pitching seems like it could be a little bit better, but yeah, the offense is pretty terrible.
Are we sure that Austin Slater can't single-handedly drive the offense?
We finally solved right field, Joe.
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be very bad again. And yeah, I think that in terms of Venable, I did enjoy, kind of his attitude that he enjoys the challenge of, entering a situation that is very bad, and he wants to see, the team's recovery from start to finish. Of course, yeah, this year there's going to be very little progress made in all likelihood. And, I don't mind the White Sox kind of taking it easy in free agency this year, given that they're just so far away. If they had if they were handing out, 4-year contracts to players who actually might be above average this year, they'll be on the tail ends of those deals by the time that they have a serious chance of being good again. So the timing might not match up from that standpoint. So it's fine that they, aren't being overly aggressive right now. I am. Yeah, I do think that at least in the short run, a lot of people will look at the new staff as being foolish, but they aren't. They're in a very rough situation in terms of just how much talent they have to work with. So I feel like the pressure should, at least for 2025, largely be off from that standpoint.
But there are some check boxes, right? Are they still running into each other in the outfield? Are they hustling to first base? So I think there are some things, at least that from an eye test as fans, we can look at and say, okay, at least it looks like some of the fundamental things are getting better. Maybe that's what we can look forward to.
Yeah. If they lose 121 games because they are just, well, I guess it doesn't match up that they lose 101 games and there's still something to. Perhaps they could lose 121 games in a better way than they did last year. That sounds nonsensical, so I'd like to reserve the right to rescind that asinine statement, but I think I'm trying to further what Melissa's saying. They're not going to be good. They're not going to not lose 100. They're not going to not lose 100 games next year. But can you lose those games? I don't know, maybe even making errors of overzealous, aggressive errors versus nobody called for the ball. The chronic 20-year situation with the White Sox of no one called for the ball. Who knew back in the old days when Ozzie Guillen every year would say, we don't know how to bunt next year in the spring. I'm going to teach them how to bunt and we're going to bunt. And then next year they wouldn't be able to bunt next year. That's one aspect of the game. And now we've grown into every aspect of the game. We know we can't throw strikes. We can't block pitches. We can't base run with intelligence. We can't play defense. It seems like in any aspect, even Louis Robert gets confused sometimes. Who knew? I used to pick on, a laugh at Ozzie for that statement, because it's wow, what a strange perpetual motion machine you are. It's wait, who's the person who's in charge of teaching players how to bunt, and somehow you're acting like you're powerless to it? Well, that's the whole organization is powerless to changing things. I certainly hope that as soon as April next year, we see just a different vibe and a different look from this team, just in terms of their ability to execute. I don't necessarily mean bunting, but just don't be dumbasses. That was, it's bad enough that the talent just wasn't there, because clearly this talent playing the best it could was going to be I don't know, what, 100-loss team, something like that. But man, they made that. I mean, how do you make a 100-loss team more painful? And they did by making it historically bad. How come, Melissa and Joe, how come I think that by October 2025, Will Venable is going to look sort of like Barack Obama after 8 years of his presidency? How come I think that zealous, that like apple pie eating smile he's got, where he's like, you know what, this was just the right thing for me at this time, which again makes us all go, uh-oh, I was in favor of you until I heard that. How come? Yeah, it just seems like it's gonna. I mean, I won't necessarily like grizzled old man by October, but oh man, I'm actually, not in a sick, sad, wanting the Sox to do bad way, but I'm curious just to see how going through this process, which he knows going in this, I mean, I'm not going to say it, but it's a 100-loss team. Come on. How that is going to just wear you down, just weary you, because how can't it? I mean, even somebody like Pedro who's like, well, I'm never going to have anything insightful to say ever, 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 ever. When I do, it's going to be calling out like the wrong player and some weird thing. But that's like 1% of the time. Even a guy as homogenous as him, it was, I guess you could see some wear on him. Somebody like Venable, or, had it been Sizemore, somebody who seems more engaged, perhaps a better leader of men, or one that could relate to the players. That's the thing that Venable brought out in his brief remarks to media, which is like, hey, I've been there. I'm going to be able to really relate to these guys in terms of how hard this game is. Wait till he has to do that with 26 players after every game, because that might be what this is going to take.
Yeah. Does it help if you go in knowing you're going to be bad? Like, so, and if you do better, then it's like cherry on top, right? Like, I don't know. I guess maybe because the Pedro thing, it was always like sold to us, like, we're going to be competitive. We're going to be competitive. And now that we just know already that it's going to be bad, and we know we're not signing people and we're in this rebuild. So is it a little bit lighter on his shoulders in terms of like, okay, well, I'm not expected to even win 60 games.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just expected to go out there and be motivating and supportive and teach fundamentals and have the clubhouse get along. And if I can do those things, it's a success. So maybe he won't look like Barack next year.
Right. Yeah, maybe not. I mean, the pressure is off, though. That is good to bring up. The pressure should be off. I mean, technically it should have been last year, but then we had the acronym stuff, which actually, as much as we, I guess we sort of laughed at it from the jump. Had they done it, I think we would have been eating that acronym, right? I mean, we're like, okay, well, they suck, but they are playing the way they said they're going. They can't hit the ball in the infield, but you know what? They generated those 2 runs in this game. So they're trying to just rub the 2 sticks together, and they're creating a couple sparks. Okay, that's the best they can do. They're playing what Pedro laid out in their little haughty 5-minute video about, we're going to cuss about fast, man, we're going to do it. That's what made it bad. So the pressure should still, it should probably still be off to win. But the pressure to actually look like you're in the major leagues versus AA, that's going to be on. And you'd think that's a bar you could clear. I mean, Joe, you think that's a fair assessment that, the pressure's off, but there still have to be results, even if it's not going to show up in the left-hand column?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think some of those check boxes that Melissa was talking about, I think that those will be a major part of what I'm looking for in 2025 for them. Specifically, like, just one that comes to mind is the incident of, the players running into each other, like in Baltimore. That was a game. I was actually like on my way out of work, and I saw like a lot of people were writing about this, and like, I didn't know what was going on. I was like, and I saw Eloy Jimenez was at the plate. I was like, oh, he hit a grand slam, didn't he? But then somehow it was even worse than if Jimenez had hit the grand slam. More embarrassing. I think just avoiding ridiculous events like that, and properly communicating, and not making these mental mistakes that are easily avoidable, and that players who aren't even, the most talented at the major league level could easily avoid. I think being able to do those kinds of things will be important this year coming up.
You want to know something sad, Joe? When you started your story by saying the game against Baltimore, when the players ran into each other, my first thought was, which one?
Which game?
I wanted to know how you were going to specify. So that's if that's not your pocket schedule, your retro pocket schedule for 2024, I don't know what is. What a year. Okay, last year all off season, because it seemed like we were on the verge of something big, and boy, did I not even know how big it was. It seemed like every podcast asked for like season prediction and a loss prediction, because it seemed like a little bit of Capers block there, like a little rubbernecking, like, oh my God, you really think it's going to be that bad? Oh, you don't think it's going to be that bad? Okay, explain yourself. We had some fun discussions there, and I think as the offseason went on, people got a little bit more creeped out by the crash that they were about to witness as soon as like late March, not because of a snowstorm that canceled the game, but because the White Sox were going to take the field and it was going to be horrifying. We enter this season differently, and I'm not going to necessarily press you for losses quite yet. Instead, let's put a twist on it. I guess we've sort of alluded to it a little bit, but I'd like to know from the both of you, and maybe I'll try to come up with an answer as well. The thing, and it doesn't have to be high and mighty, like, the acronym you're going to come up with that Venable's going to use. But what is the thing if there's an answer, none of the above is a proper answer, I'll accept it. What's the thing you're looking forward to from the 2025 White Sox? And that's a tough one. So if we just want to pause, we can dead air. This is a podcast. Who cares? We can dead air. This isn't the radio. Nobody's going to take us off the air. FCC does that? Well, I'm sure FCC will have oversight over podcast real soon, right? Oh my gosh, what a wonderful November it was. The best November of my life. But Melissa and Joe, what's something you're looking forward to, providing we're allowed to have a season next year? I mean, let's get crazy political for 1 second. Okay, that's over. 2025, what are you looking forward to from the Chicago White Sox? Or from baseball, if you don't want to commit to the White Sox.
Those last few words there from the Chicago White Sox, that made it much harder to
Very
answer.
challenging.
What do we have going on next year? I think we will see Venable's true colors rather quickly.
Okay.
I'm very interested in seeing how he acts as the season goes on, and they are almost definitely losing many, many games. I am hoping that they're able to get a good return for the few players who do have value. If they can extend Crochet, then let's say that no one is offering a fair return for him. I'd be very happy to keep him, extend him, and see how he does this in 2025. I think he was a very, very exciting pitcher this year, and always fun to watch pitchers who can rack up strikeouts, and he exceeded just about everyone's expectations in 2025. So granted, he had a 6-12 record, but that's the most misleading stat of all time right there.
Yes. 6 of 41 wins is what we should be applauding.
Yes.
Okay, Melissa, I'm cutting you off. You don't get to answer now, so you can leave. No, Joe, I got to cut in here because, all right, I'm going to question your logic. You're Sox-Met champ. Trust me, I'm not going to take you on any kind of bait. Forget that. But you pointedly said, well, I don't expect the White Sox to sign players because, again, my retort is the window's perpetual then. So, when is it ever going to change? But I get the logic, of course. This team's going to lose 180 billion games next year. Why in the world would we bring in who'd want to come here? Again, Venable, but who would want to come here? And I get that there's logic there, but then how does that logic translate to extending Crochet? Which, on one hand, that's just an absolute risk to begin with, because of course, even though I'm tired of doubting Garrett Crochet, so I won't do it. I promise, Garrett. Don't get mad at me. But I mean, okay, it's 1 year. It's 100 and whatever, 40, however many innings he had. Okay, let's not go bananas here. I'm assuming you mean if there's something team friendly, whatever, he really does want us for some reason, because he's totally loopy. He's a lefty, right? Wants to stay in Chicago. But I mean, it does follow. I'm not wrong to push back on you a little bit to say, okay, now hold on. I know, we already have the starting pitcher at home. So, okay, extending him's a little different, but it's not completely different, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So with Crochet, if they can get a good return, my top choice would be trading him for that return. If they can't, I think in his case, I would be fine with extending him, even if they aren't going to be good in the next couple of years, because he is only 25, and I think if they give him a big extension, like, he'll still be around by the time that they have a chance of being good again.
Ooh, Joe's coming dangerously close to making a prediction about White Sox goodness. I like it.
Yes, anything prior to like 2028, I can't see them.
Ooh, man, you are still so sunny. Wow.
No. I said I can't really see anything good in the White Sox future prior to 2028. But after that, I mean, it's like, who knows? Like, once you go beyond the 3-year mark, regardless of how bad the current situation is, like, you can't really predict reliably that far.
We will all have shed our entire bodies 3 or 4 times by then. So yes, you're right. It's a whole different world. You're right. The sun's going to hit us differently by then. No, you're right. You're right. I'm prone to laugh at 2028, but you're right. That's 4 seasons, for God's sake. So yeah, you hope there's some crack in the clouds by then. They're like maybe 500 by then. It just seems like we keep pushing it back. But yeah, I guess that's not so outrageous. I just think, all right, I'm not going to completely roast the idea of extending Crochet, although I can't. If Chris Getz in this offseason can't get a deal for a Crochet, I mean, I understand how teams would be like, well, same thing I just said. 140 innings, 1 year, flaky at the trade deadline. Hold on. But I mean, there's also a ton of competition for like 2 arms out there on the market. So I'd have to think he'd be able to get this done. But let's not steal all of Melissa's thunder, because we probably just covered all her points. Melissa, hey, tell me, what are you looking forward to besides your thrilling upcoming pseudo Sox Fest? Not really a fest, not really a Sox, but just a thing that you're going to go to for a couple nights next month. Technically next month. What's something you're looking forward to about the White Sox, or not seeing Shohei steal bases, or what is it you're looking forward to in 2025?
Okay, so I have like a 2-part. So the first part is that I'm looking forward to the celebrations of the 2005 World Series. So like, I mean, I do like nostalgia, and I do, since I have a young kid still in the house who likes baseball, and like share that with him. So I'm looking forward to that, because I think that will be really fun. And
Sage's got a connection to the trophy. Let's face it. I mean,
that's
he wasn't
right.
there to witness it, but he's got a connection to the trophy. So
exactly. So like, yeah, I mean, they can be terrible, but they can never take that away from us, at least. So we have that.
That's true.
And then
you think after 121 wins, they could actually revoke a title from 20 years earlier. But yeah, technically, I don't think Manfred could do that. But all right, good point.
No,
yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Even with instant replay, we can't go back and overrule AJ's dropped pitch. No, we can't do any of that. So, and then the other part is, I have some hope that with the new director of hitting, that we might be able to see some improvement with approach at the plate. And it won't look like every guy is just going up there and having no strategy whatsoever. So, I mean, I don't obviously know this guy really well, but I don't know. I feel good about it. So I'm looking forward to watching that, and check back with me in like April. And I may be totally going back on that and being like, they still look like they have no approach at the plate. But I mean, we did see Bannister make some improvements on the pitching side. So I am looking for that on the hitting side?
Well, I've had, when I'm not trying to insert pithy remarks or astute, challenging questions to you, I have been thinking about what my answer could be, and I'm afraid to say I cannot come up with anything. So what I'll say, I'll use a Xerox copy of something we've talked about even just last year, or last off season, which is being curious to see and hoping there will be a player who truly, I guess last year you could say Brooks Baldwin is a guy who came out of nowhere. Coming from Double-A, which actually I think to break camp was sort of an aggressive assignment for him. Debatable that he should have even started at Double-A. To make the majors just with a sneeze at Charlotte, where he could have really fattened up his hitting. So I guess he did for a week. He hit so well, they're like, all right, we can't stop this train. But a guy who finally makes Drew Thorpe look like he was the guy, and then, between injury and maybe the league figured out he just don't throw very hard, looked like he could be the guy. I just finally want to see whether the White Sox can produce a player. It doesn't seem like they will, so I'm going to be very skeptical if this is going to happen. I would have been a lot more enthusiastic about it going into 2024. I just want to see that player who sort of hits again. It doesn't even have to be at this point at the major league level. I just want to see somebody maybe a hit as high as Triple-A and just be like, I am coming. Again, I always use the example of Frank Thomas. Of course, we're not going to set Frank Thomas. We're going to yoke any of these young players with a Frank Thomas comp or expectation, but just that guy who you immediately saw. I'd say somebody like, I don't know, Ray Durham. There's other guys who got quickly to the majors or hit the majors like, okay, this guy belongs and he's going to produce for the White Sox for some time. Maybe not even as a star, but just as a guy who, okay, we got that position covered now. Alistair Ramirez wasn't necessarily like a superstar, but it's like, okay, I think we got shortstop all right. He can field it well enough, can hit it well enough. He's a fun player. Somebody throws the ball at him, he lays on the ground for 5 minutes. He's fun. He's a character. AJ never really, killed the league in any particular way, but he was there every year. He wanted to catch every game. He had a mouth on him. You never knew when he was going to decide to fall down and get some sort of like phantom defensive interference like play and win a game for you. You just never knew what the guy was going to do. I just want at least that guy to come and say like, all right, I belong. Could be a pitcher, could be a reliever, could be a pinch hitter for God's sake. It could be somebody we find. I hope it's from the system.
Maybe Riku Nishida, like that, he's kind of exciting to watch. So maybe he could be the guy.
It'd be fun to see him storm into the majors the way Baldwin did. He'd go and do it very differently, I'm sure. For a guy who says Shohei Ohtani should still be stealing bases, that's in my wheelhouse. And I think I can speak for both Melissa and Joe here and say that definitely Riku Nishida is a guy who's in all of our wheelhouses because it's like, all right, this is fun and this is unexpected. And what business is this guy doing being a pest and being pesky and annoying people at the Double-A level? I think that might have been more than we would ever hope from the guy. Yeah. So sure, I'm not going to be picky. It could be like a first baseman. I know we got 16,000 of them, but it could be a DH just somewhere. It's like, wow, I belong. We saw it from like 1 week of Brian Ramos. It was like, wow, and personality. Things didn't work out. He got hurt. And he didn't, play terribly, terribly well. Back in the minors, went back up and down. But boy, that first week was like, oh my goodness, he wasn't even hitting very well in Double-A. Look, he comes to the majors and he's mashing what's happening here. I'll take it. It doesn't have to be. I don't even need all-star level. I'm not asking for Frank Thomas. I just want, okay, we've got a regular at third base. Done. Next position. Who's coming next somewhere else? And I don't know that we can speculate that Edgar Carroll's that guy. And I'm willing to go along with that, but that's still a stretch. I don't think we have any of those guys. Luis Roberto's not even a guy we can say that about, right now. And that hurts. We don't have it. So I want to see one of those. And that sounds like it's asking way too much. And I hate that sounds like it's asking too much because I don't think it's going to happen. But man, my fingers have crossed to the point of spraining that 1, 2, 3 guys could do that for us. I hope there's hope. Riku, if it's you, come on, man, that would be great. The White Sox can lose 131, and if they win, it's not this doesn't add up at all. Joe's saying, what are you talking about, Brett? But if they win 80% of their games at Charlotte, I'll be like, awesome, man, because I know something's coming. And sure, it's still just Charlotte, and I don't get to see games at Charlotte, so what does it matter to me? But I know something's coming. It was nice that they won the AA championship, even though they won in sort of this strange back into it fluky way. But they did. Cool. Dominant Charlotte team, or super dominant like all year Birmingham team. All right, that might count as the thing I want, but I'd really just want to see one guy or multiple guys just sort of break out of the pack and say, you know what, I'm a major leaguer, and I'm pulling the window up from Joe Reis's 2028 or Brett Valentini's 2032 because I'm that good. We're that good. I'm going to make my teammates better. I hope we sort of get that. I hate to cite this again. I don't know if you were on by the time I cited the kids can play in this podcast, but I mean, just that kind of group that's like, all right, maybe something is brewing here, and I'm excited about some undetermined year in the future, maybe 2028, maybe 2026. That's a long-winded answer to say I'm not looking forward to anything, but let's face it, I'm not looking forward to anything, and it makes it hard to host these podcasts. Okay, time to put you on the spot, because we don't know if we're going to have another podcast for, please click like, subscribe, whatever the things you do on podcasts. Please do that. But I can't promise we're going to do the next one. That's why it's exciting, right? It's like it's a mystery. It's like a bonus episode of something you weren't expecting. But at least until then, I cannot leave Melissa Sage-Bollenbach or Super Joe Resis without getting some sort of prediction about 2025. You can be specific. You can say it's going to be better. You can say it's going to be worse. You can say it's going to be the same. Nobody's taking this down as your official prediction in the 2025 grid, which we know is fiercely competitive among staff. And gosh, this year, based on the response we've had in this off season and the amount of podcasts this host has even created, we're probably going to have like 5 people making predictions. So increases your chances to win, I guess. What is it going to be for 2025? And don't fall over each other answering first. Just go ahead. You're not being asked to commit, but still answer.
All right. They are going to be just slightly better. So instead of like 41 losses, I would probably put them around, or 41 wins. Sorry, I said that wrong.
I would kill for 41 losses.
41 losses. I will say 50 wins. So just a little bit better, but still real bad.
So the math is 50 and 112.
12, yeah.
Unless mercifully about 50 games are canceled, because who knows, that would be, then 50 wins would be pretty awesome. So go Sox, root for cancellations once you hit 50. Okay, that's some would argue that's a lot more than slightly better, but yeah, pointed in the right direction. And is that more, Melissa, just because the coin flip lands differently, or do you think there is going to be, I guess it's got to be at least a little of both, but do you think it's going to be more just the law of averages and Will Venable's wonderful smile that he still manages to keep through most post games, or is it because this team actually does get better and plays fast or something?
Yeah, I think the bullpen is not going to blow as many late game leads. I feel like there's going to be better decision making at that part of it, where Pedro, I don't know what he was doing some of the time and some of the stuff that he was doing. So I feel like they may be able to hold on to some of those leads that they had that they blew later in the game. So.
Let me make it clear in case anyone's confused. I don't buy into by and large closer mentality and the leverage at the end of the games being so much more miraculously important than others. But what you are saying, Melissa, is they are going to somehow find a closer dropping out of the sky, and they are going to get that part settled, because it's not just a matter of decision making, although I imagine that's the bigger part of it, no doubt. But that there's going to be arm that's going to step into that role, because Lord knows it's like a special stirrups you have to wear. So, if you're not wearing them, you can't be a closer, right? So, but that's going to sort itself out in a way that's like, okay, because they have the arms. So, that's not, I'm sort of like, I guess I'm trying to like take the piss out of it a little bit, but not really. They have the personnel. They actually do have the personnel for someone to step up and do that. And it might be time for us to be pleasantly surprised by some of these arms instead of, Jordan was good for 3 weeks and then it didn't happen. So you're thinking it's going to come together, and that will, coaching is going to help that, but also guys actually stepping up and executing is going to improve.
Yes, that is true too. Because
Right.
we need both parts of that. We need the better decision making, and then yes, after a year of kind of we had last year of getting a little bit better, they're going to improve and get more solid at the back end there.
Okay. All right. Joe Resis sees your sunny outlook, and will he raise, or is he going to somehow take the under on a 50-win season and whatever this thing about they're going to have a close or whatever. Joe, hit me. What are you feeling?
It's very close. I think 50 is about right. I lean ever so slightly toward the over, I think, mainly due to the bullpen. I do think they will be quite a bit better in 2024, in 2025. They were, I should know better than to say, well, it can't get worse.
You should.
Because it can somehow get worse, as we have learned this year. But I am largely having the same attitude. I think that they will luck into some nice seasons from random bullpen arms this year. And I'll give him a 53 win projection. And Luis Roberts will have he'll be an MVP candidate for some other team. Yeah.
All right. You hit me with the whammy. I knew something was coming, but all right. That's appropriate. Yeah, that's a no-brainer. I mean, Kopech gets Cy Young votes for being a Dodgers reliever. Yeah. Well, boy, you've made it easy for me because it's real easy to take the under on those predictions. Nah, no way. I don't see it. I don't want to be dour. I don't want to never host a podcast again. I want to talk to you, lovely, lovely people. That means both our dear, dear listeners and viewers, and of course, my respective co-host here, longtime pal, best friend in the entire world, Joe Resis, and my other best friend in the entire world, Melissa Sage-Bollenbach. But I'm sorry, both of you are wrong. They might not be worse, but they are not going to be much. I do not see this bump or the coin falling a different way, and I do not delight at all in just leaning into the dour. I'm not even sure. I mean, this is a ridiculous statement. I'm not even sure they'll be better, but for the sake of the same type of tension, which apparently among all our predictors, other than Ryan, I came closest to picking they and I were the only two to say they were actually going to break this record and not even tie it. So I'm going to keep that same tension where I was saying last year they were going to break the record by a game. I'll say they'll fall a game better than last year. So in my eyes, it's going to be a 42-win, 120-loss season, which even saying that makes me just want to, I'm going to hit end recording right now and I'm never, ever coming back, because who in the world should voluntarily withstand this kind of nonsense for now, arguably, well, more than 3 years, but definitely 3 years, if not our lifetimes. But yeah, just put us to sleep with the 2005 nostalgia. Just anesthetize us with that, because there's a lot of highlights there. Hey, you know what? Both of you lived through this enough. Joe, I know, as a little baby, but okay, we all experienced this. So tell me this. I mean, I guess there's some obvious answers. Let's end on a high note. Nobody listening expected this. We're 75 minutes into this goddamn podcast. Apologies to you listeners and viewers. Why did I do that to you? And Melissa, for sure, you've been here for every minute of it. Oh, wow. Okay, you're off for the next month. Your favorite moment of 2005. I mean, there's some obvious, like when they actually won, and maybe that's too obvious, but there's got to be something unexpected, maybe even in the regular season or maybe in the parade, for goodness sake, that's a lasting memory beyond having the trophy thrust onto your lap, Melissa. But a favorite memory. I think I have my answer, but give me what yours are.
Oh my gosh, like there's just so many. It's really hard to pick because, of course you can always go with the Pods home run and the Canerico home run and all of that. But I mean, the only game that I was lucky enough to go to was the ALDS game one. And so I'm just going to go with that because I was there in person and it was a gorgeous, gorgeous
It was.
October
It's
day.
hot.
I mean,
It was
yeah, it was
hot.
hot.
I went
It
in
was,
the shower.
yeah, yeah. It was, and so it was like the weather was perfect. That game was electric because of all the offense, and it just set the tone for the whole thing. And so that's what I'm going with.
All right, Joe. I feel like I've asked these questions to people like 100 times, but it's always fun still to hear. Or give me something new. What is it for you, Joe?
I don't think I've actually answered this one in
Okay.
the past. Yeah, I have a slight correction to make. I was not quite a baby at that point. I was 10. But yes, I think I do have something that is, a little bit out of the ordinary on this one.
Okay.
In September of 2005, before a game, I got to meet Hawk Harrelson and Darren Jackson. That was very much fun, and that was. I actually wrote them a letter telling them how much I enjoyed their commentary, and I got invited to the booth on September 25th, 2005. It was.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you have video? Do you have video of it still?
I'm sure I'm sure I have it still. Yeah, that would be I know for sure that my dad definitely recorded that. So that footage definitely still exists at somewhere.
I feel like we need to see footage. I feel like you need to dig up your VCR or a tape and screen record.
Baby Sox math Resis. Yeah. You gotta see it. Well, it sounds to me, Joe, you need to actually digitize that. Just like I need to digitize all the footage I took of the actual. I was there for all the playoff games, so I shot the Grand Slam, I'm sure, and I shot when I thought they won the game, but Houston tied it. What was that? The top of the ninth or whatever in game one. I don't know what that was. I'm sure it's shaky. I'm sure it's terrible footage, just like my Mark Burley perfect game footage, because I'm not a professional and I don't have professional equipment. But maybe 20 years later is the time to do that. Yeah, okay. My answer is I think it's somewhat similar to Melissa's, because I have a ton. I was lucky enough to be at all of them. Good Lord. Thank you, Scott Reiford. You'll always be my pal for somehow connecting me and my dad with that. But I'd say it actually was not a game witnessed. It was watching, particularly that crazy El Duque inning in Boston, and then them wrapping up that series. Because frankly, going into the playoffs, that's all I wanted. I just wanted the White Sox to win a playoff series. That's how battered we were as fans, just to say, hey, win a playoff series. It would have still been the first since 1917. So it still would have tumbled down a bunch of roadblocks that have been in front of the White Sox. And I don't think any of us were haughty enough to say, the White Sox are going to win it all, no matter how many home runs they hit in that first hot ALDS game one. So just win that series, okay. And the way they won it, and the sort of the miracle stuff that was starting to happen, like the El Duque inning alone, made you think, well, okay, maybe who's in their way now? Well, maybe, but I mean that was just I thought, oh, okay, well, man, they did something I maybe never thought I'd see. I mean that's a really sad, low standard, and of course that was in an era where the playoffs were still at least a little bit different than they are now, where it's just not dime a dozen to win a playoff series or win a play-in game or whatever all the different levels are now. I mean, it's a little easier to advance in the playoffs even than it was then. But that was a pretty big one for me. And I think, of course, driving home game 2, World Series, having it sink in that the White Sox were going to win the World Series, because, I mean, not to, oh, man, I was inviting black cats and ladders and stuff by thinking that. But come on, we all thought the way they won. Now, I don't think anyone thought they were going to sweep, but the way they won, they knew, come on, coming back to Chicago in whatever blizzard it was going to be by the time they came back, the White Sox are going to win the World Series. So that was such there's a lot of weird backstory and layered story to my memory with that, but certainly the main takeaway was the White Sox are going to win the World Series. And boy, didn't we just see two pretty kick-ass games just incidentally. But knowing, sinking in that in the course of 2 weeks, you went from thinking, wow, will they ever win a playoff series to, oh yeah, they're going to sweep through they're going to win the World Series. My team is going to be champions. Yeah, that's a pretty sweet memory. But I'm sure, because despite the way I'm talking, we're going to have like dozens, if not hundreds of podcasts between now and the end of 2025, or 225, the way I like to call it, my shorthand. In 225, we're going to probably have 225 podcasts. And I'm guessing in every one of those we'll have some favorite 2005 memory, because I'll be talking to other people, or maybe I'll get lucky and I won't have to be on all of them. So the other hosts and the other guests can talk about their favorite memories. And when you get tired of it, I don't know, switch over to some music, come back to us. We'll probably still be yakking about something. And Joe, remember another memory, another time he's in the booth. Joe's now told me like 14 different stories where he's been in the booth. He's been with Benetti, he's been with Stone, he's been with Hawk, he's been with DJ. He probably was with John Rooney. He's probably with Lou Brock the year that he was broadcasting. It's amazing. So I look forward to more of those broadcast stories from the future Sox Math champion. He's just at home in the booth, man. Of course he's going to win Sox Math. He's an unofficial like intern champion, whatever, with footage that he'll digitize one day. Okay, Melissa, the gauntlet's thrown. You got to come up with some crazier stuff than having giving birth and having a trophy thrust on your lap, like on your way home or whatever. The bar's high, but Joe's setting it. I don't got anything to compete with either one of those, so I'm just going to keep yakking about like, oh yeah, I was at a game and I went to the Vec shower and I saw them win and I was happy, and then it got really cold and like, why do I live in Chicago and all that stuff? But I don't anymore. Anyway, thanks everybody for listening. You still listening? Oh, bam. Look, I see the counter. They're still listeners. Melissa, thanks for being with me for the entire time. Joe, thanks for sticking around so long. It seems like you're here for the entire time because, you put an hour in. Yeah, you get that's full. That's actually 1.5 pay. So you're good, Melissa. 5 times pay, and me as usual, no pay because this is just an ego trip, right? Okay, thanks everybody for listening. This is 182. 183 will come probably before the end of the year. I can't think of what we're going to come up to talk about because especially we don't have the excuse of Soxivus. But that said, we will come up with something. The White Sox will sign the lefty Austin Slater, and we'll get excited and we'll talk about it. I'll insist Joe comes on to pump us full of some hot air about why we should be excited about that. Or I'll be the one pumping the hot air because I'm desperately looking for someone to take over the White Sox and tell me that before 2028, the White Sox will be worth watching again. Thanks to Sage-Bollenbach for the makeshift studio, for Melissa, and Joe for stopping his travels from where he is to spend some time chatting about whatever we chat about. I don't even remember now. And for me, slowly losing my voice, Brett Ballantini. See, I have to take off a month again. Sorry, buddy. I know it breaks your hearts. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Thanksgiving, Happy end of the last Democratic presidential term we'll have in our country's history. Anyway, we're not here to talk about politics. I know I've just made everybody so angry. You're snapping off the podcast. Well, go ahead and do that because the podcast is now over.